Hello, everyone. Welcome to another day of food adventures, another evening of stories. Let's see what our word puzzle is today. We'll switch to the dock camera. Time to guess what this word is. Can we guess it before all the letters are on there? This looks like a nail. I'll put an N for nail. We know this is an O for octopus. I've seen that one before. And an A for apple. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a horse or a donkey. Now I'm guessing it's a donkey because I'm looking at this tail, and that is a donkey's tail. So I'm guessing that's a D. Have you guessed the word yet? This is an umbrella. And I'm pretty sure this is a rooster because if it's a chicken and I put a C, this will say a cound, and that doesn't make any sense. Also, it's got a very colorful tail and a large comb, which tells me it's probably a rooster. So this would be an R, which makes our word around, which makes perfect sense. So when you eat foods from all around the world, you'll end up discovering foods that are very different than what you usually eat. Sometimes it's not just the food that's different. Sometimes it's the way it's eaten that's different, just as the people in this book discovered. How My Parents Learned to Eat. The story is by Ina R. Friedman, and it's illustrated by Alan Say. I first heard this book on the show Reading Rainbow, which is why it's got a Reading Rainbow sticker on it, and I loved seeing it on there. So it's one of my favorite books. How My Parents Learned to Eat. In our house, some days we eat with chopsticks, and some days we eat with knives and forks. For me, it's natural. When my mother met my father, she was a Japanese schoolgirl and he was an American sailor. His ship was stationed in Yokohama. Every day, my father, whose name is John, walked in the park with my mother, Aiko. They sat on a bench and talked, but my father was afraid to invite my mother to dinner. If we go to a restaurant, he thought, I'll go hungry because I don't know how to eat with chopsticks. And if I go hungry, I'll act like a bear. Then Aiko won't like me. I'd better not ask her to dinner. My mother wondered why my father never invited her to dinner. Perhaps John is afraid I don't know how to eat with a knife and fork and I'll look silly, she thought. Maybe it is best if he doesn't invite me to dinner. So they walked and talked and never ate a bowl of rice or a piece of bread together. One day, the captain of my father's ship said, John, in 3 weeks the ship is leaving Japan. My father was sad. He wanted to marry my mother. How can I ask her to marry me? He thought. I don't even know if we like the same food, and if we don't, we'll go hungry. It's hard to be happy if you're hungry. I'll have to find out what food she likes, and I'll have to learn how to eat with chopsticks. So he went to a Japanese restaurant. Everyone sat on cushions around low tables. My father bowed to the waiter. Please teach me to eat with chopsticks? Of course, said the waiter, bowing. The waiter brought a bowl of rice and a plate of sukiyaki. Sukiyaki is made of small pieces of meat, vegetables, and tofu. It smelled good. My father wanted to gobble it up. The waiter placed 2 chopsticks between my father's fingers. Hold the bottom chopstick still. Move the top one to pick up the food, the waiter said. My father tried, but the meat slipped off his chopstick and fell on his lap. The waiter came back with a bowl of soup. How can I eat soup with chopsticks? My father thought. Drink, said the waiter. Drink from the bowl. Thank goodness, my father said. After the soup, my father felt better. He picked up the chopsticks. Finally, my father put one piece of meat in his mouth. Delicious. More soup, please, he said. After 3 bowls of soup, my father felt much better. Then he practiced some more with his chopsticks. Soon, there was more sukiyaki in his belly than on the floor. But it was too late to call my mother. He had to run back to his ship. That night, my mother was sad. Every other day, my father had come to see her. That day, he did not come. He did not call on the telephone. Perhaps he was tired of walking and talking. Perhaps he was ashamed of her because she did not know how to eat with a knife and fork. Perhaps his ship had sailed away. All night, she could not sleep. And all night, my father sat on his bunk, pretending to pick up sukiyaki. The next morning, my father called my mother. Please, will you eat dinner with me tonight? Yes, my mother shouted into the phone. First, she was happy. Then she was afraid. She took her school books and ran to the house of great uncle. Great uncle had visited England. He had seen the British Museum. He had eaten dinners with Englishmen. My mother knocked at the door. Great uncle opened it. Why are you so sad, child? He asked. Because I must learn to eat with a knife and fork by 7 o'clock tonight. Great uncle nodded. Foreign ways are quite strange. Why do you want to eat with a knife and fork? My mother blushed. Is it the American sailor? Great uncle asked. I see. Here, take this note to your teacher. At lunchtime, I will come and take you to a foreign restaurant. By 7 o'clock tonight, you will eat with a knife and fork. My mother picked up her school bag and bowed. No, Great uncle stuck out his hand. In the West, you shake hands. The restaurant had red carpets and many lights. Great uncle pulled out a chair for my mother. In the West, men help ladies into chairs, he told her. My mother looked at the small fork and the large fork on the left. She looked at the knife, little spoon, and big spoon on the right. Her head grew dizzy. Different utensils for different foods, Great uncle said. How strange to dirty so many things, said my mother. A chopstick is a chopstick. I can eat everything with 2 chopsticks. When the waiter brought the soup, Great uncle pointed at the large spoon. Dip it slowly. Bring it to your mouth. Sip quietly. Mother's hand trembled. The soup spilled on the white cloth. You'll learn, Great uncle encouraged her. When my mother was finished with the soup, the waiter brought her a plate of mashed potatoes, roast beef, and peas. "This is the way Westerners eat," Great Uncle said. "With a knife and fork they cut the meat. Then they hold the fork upside down in their left hand. Like birds, they build a nest of mashed potatoes. They put the peas in the nest with a knife. Then they slip the nest into their mouth. Try it." The mashed potatoes were not difficult, but the peas rolled all over the plate. "Impossible," said my mother. "I'll never learn by 7 o'clock tonight." "You can learn anything," Great Uncle said. "Try again. More mashed potatoes and peas, please," he said to the waiter. At 7 o'clock, my father came to see my mother. "Why didn't you wear your kimono?" he asked. "We're going to a Japanese restaurant." "A Japanese restaurant? Don't you think I know how to eat Western food?" my mother asked. "Of course. Don't you think I know how to eat Japanese food?" "Of course." "Then tonight we'll eat meat and potatoes, and tomorrow night we'll eat sukiyaki." "Tomorrow night I will wear my kimono," my mother said. She started to bow. Then she stopped and put out her hand. My father shook it. My father ordered 2 plates of mashed potato, roast beef, and peas. He watched my mother cut the meat into pieces. He stared when she turned over her fork and made a bird's nest. He was amazed. "You are very clever with a knife and fork," he said. "Thank you," said my mother. "You must teach me," my father said. "That's a new way of eating peas." "Teach you?" "Yes, Americans don't eat that way." He slid his fork under some peas and put them in his mouth. My mother stared at him. "But Great Uncle taught me. He lived in England. He knows the ways of the West." My father began to laugh. "He taught you like an Englishman. Americans eat differently." "Oh dear," my mother said. "A chopstick is a chopstick. Everyone uses them in the same way." "Yes, when we are married, we'll eat only with chopsticks." He took her hand. "Married. If I marry you, I want to eat like an American. I'll teach you to eat with a knife and fork, and you teach me to eat with chopsticks." My mother shook my father's hand. My father bowed. That's why at our house, some days we eat with chopsticks, and some days we eat with knives and forks. In my house, we sometimes eat with chopsticks as well, only because when I was growing up, I lived near an Asian market that sold tasty food. A friend of the family would cook it and gave me my own little pair of chopsticks. So when I was about 6, I learned how to use chopsticks. I'll show you. Let me show you what I've got here. So on this board, I have a warm, wet, clean cloth, and sometimes we use this to clean our hands. Sometimes if you go to a Japanese restaurant, they might offer you one. It's handy for me because I'm not next to a sink. And I know I've touched my computer, so I like to have some clean hands. And then this is a little school lunch box, like they might give to a child to take a lunch to school. I use it myself all the time. And inside, I just have a few things to eat. And then this is a chopstick set. It opens like that. And my lunch chopsticks are inside of it. The case keeps them clean so that I can use them. So what I have to eat here, let's get the focus. This is a very simple snack. We have some rice with furikake on it, and that's just a sprinkling. And this one is made out of sesame seeds and nori and a few other spices. There's all different flavors, and you sprinkle them on your rice to make it different flavors. Then over here, I have some pieces of nori. Nori is a algae that they dry in sheets, and they use it to wrap sushi. It's very tasty with the rice. And over here, I've got some pickled ginger. These are some of my favorite foods. So when I hold chopsticks, remember how the waiter said, you hold the bottom and it doesn't move, and the top is what you do move. So I'm using my pincher fingers to hold the top, and then I move this finger to make it go up and down. And that is how I make the chopsticks move. I'll show you that again. So this chopstick kind of rests here, and sort of this finger, this middle finger holds it with the thumb. No, actually, I guess it just rests in, yeah, it rests in those fingers because these fingers grab the top. Yeah, sometimes when you've been doing something for a while, you have to think about how to show someone how to do it. And it's fun to practice. Maybe you eat with chopsticks all the time at home, or maybe it's something new for you to use. When you can open and close them, you can pick up the food like that and take a little bite. I find chopsticks convenient to eat a lot of foods, like salad, for example, is very easy to eat with chopsticks. Pickled ginger is one of my favorites. Sometimes I just like to eat a piece by itself. Incidentally, this board that I have everything on, my grandpa made this board. It actually says 1945 on the top, because that's the year he made it. The year he and my grandmother bought their house. Pretty nifty. Some foods are eaten only with your hands. In Japan, one of the foods you eat with your hands usually is sushi. I've got a book about sushi, my first book of sushi. By Amy Wilson Sanger. I see takeout tekamaki, kapamaki packed to go. This tekamaki is tuna in the middle, raw tuna. And this one is cucumber, very tasty. Temaki style hand roll with uni urchin roe. There's some more of that nori. Miso in my sippy cup. Tofu in my bowl. Miso is used as a paste they use to make a soup out of. It's made out of soybeans. Same thing soy sauce is made out of. Same thing tofu is made out of. You can make a lot of foods out of soybeans, including soy milk. Have you had those foods before? Crab and avocado fill my California roll. This is a sushi that got popular over here, and now it's eaten everywhere. I'll take yellowtail, hamachi, and a red maguro slice. Those are kinds of fish. And they're on top of the rice, so we call that nigiri. Big futomaki has so many grains of rice. The futomaki has a lot of vegetables in it, That's a good one with lots of vegetables. Tasty. And they are quite large. They're not much smaller than this picture. Ikura, squishy salmon roe, like dabby jots of jelly, salty on my lips and yummy in my belly. These pages love to stick together, don't they? Egg tamago and shrimp ebi dipped in soy sauce, not a lot. Pink pickled ginger cools my tongue. Wasabi, hot, hot, hot. Wasabi is green and very spicy, and you saw me eat some of the ginger. I have some ginger right now. I like the tamago. The egg one is tasty. Tobiko, flying fishy roe, flying from Japan. These are also fish eggs, and they're also very salty and very crunchy. They taste a little bit like the ocean. Someday I'll eat with chopsticks, but today just with my hands. So what foods do you know that you eat with hands? And there are many, many, many places in the world where they eat with chopsticks. What are some other ways to eat? Do you ever eat using a piece of bread to pick up food, or a tortilla, or some other kind of food that picks up other food? There are a lot of different ways to eat. And the more you explore around and listen to other people tell you about their food adventures, the more ways you learn about. Hope you enjoyed your stories this evening. Talk to you soon for another food adventure.